I know what you're thinking. What the hell is it with Reed and these quotes? Hear me out. If you're like me, you probably agree that mindfulness is important. Being mindful is important to making the progress in life you're seeking and achieving the success you want. Think of it this way. When we find a good quote and stash it away that is exquisitely stated and carefully curated, we are compiling the owner's manual of our life. Now, I found one just recently I know will be quite helpful for you and is personally very helpful to me since I'm always battling imposter syndrome. The quote is a few sentences from the composer and pianist W.A. Mathieu, and it appears in his book, The Listening Book. It's called There's Not Much to Learn and It Takes Forever. Quick review, though. I wonder how you've been doing with our last quote. That one is, negativity is the enemy of creativity. Every time you're feeling overwhelmed during the creative process, I want you to think for a second and identify any negative thoughts that are holding you back. Then, with an awareness of that, it will become something that you can merely observe instead of believe. Keep at it with that quote. Moving on. There's not much to learn and it takes forever. Music is made out of only a few simple atoms. There are two basic meters, duple and triple, and two basic pitch relationships, perfect fifths and major thirds. There are a few expressive gestures, loud and soft, a few rhythms, dotted stuff, and a little scattered exotica. That's it. Why can't we learn it in a few weeks? The truth is, a musician can spend a lifetime learning 5 notes and still not know everything in them. The more masterful you become, the deeper becomes the mystery, and the more you are a beginner. So when a student feels sluggish in learning a certain mode or cross rhythm, I have to say there is hardly anything there to learn but that it takes more than one life. More than one life. I love that. This addresses a lot. This addresses the difference between the intellect and a skill. This addresses the sameness between developing that skill and a spiritual practice like meditation, prayer, contemplation, learning a musical instrument. It addresses the depth of simplicity. How deeply reverent it is to pursue the art of anything with a simple consistency and sense of purpose. Okay, so I don't want to make too much out of this, but when I was a kid, I had a somewhat hard life. I know other people have had it worse. My father died when I was 8 years old. My mother had problems because of that. I was bullied. I'll give you the details another time. I decided life as a badass would be a good remedy for that. And I turned to larceny for some relief. And that landed me in a military boarding school for over 3 years. But I also turned to music for relief. In music, I had a very sudden growth spurt over the course of a single summer when I was about 9 and went away to summer camp. And that literally saved me years later at military school, where hazing was very prevalent and violence and intimidation were commonplace. The music guy didn't get beat up so much. After the military school years, I came back home, a couple of years in high school, and then things started looking up because I was a guitarist playing gigs. I lived in a small city of about 500,000 people, and I had the experience of people knowing who I was that I had never met for most of my teenage years. So I got serious. And by the way, don't get serious if you can help it. By then, I had a compulsion, and my compulsion was to be the best musician ever. So when I went to college, I majored in music composition. I minored in classical guitar. I started studying the piano seriously. Then I moved to New York. Here I studied piano and arranging for 8 more years with Dizzy Gillespie as music director. I talked about this in another video. But New York is a city filled with astoundingly talented people, and I was definitely humbled by all that. But the worst part was still that no one knew my name. Now back to college. I didn't hang out. I practiced, I wrote. I missed a lot of fun Saturday nights in the 70s, holed up in my apartment practicing. On one of those Saturday nights, I was practicing piano alone, and I kept missing some part of a piece I was practicing. In those days, I practiced pieces that were way too hard for me, and I didn't go slow to start, which is not a recipe for success. Practicing your mistakes. How like life is that? At one point, I became violently angry, and I started pounding on the piano keyboard and yelling. I just kind of lost it. And then as I kind of came to and the emotion started to subside, I had this fly-on-the-wall, out-of-body sensation where I'd become witness to this whole spectacle. And that changed my life. It was a very humbling scene. It was a clear sign from the universe to get over myself. I wish I'd had this quote to help me through. Dude, 5 notes, more than one lifetime. You can't play pictures in an exhibition after 2 weeks. I wish I'd heard that out loud back then. This quote gives me a solace and perspective I had never experienced about that desire, a sense that everything is okay, just as it is. When you start there, that everything is okay just as it is, you're fertilizing the soil you're planting in with a deep sense of well-being, which I want you to have. I'm going to go out on a limb and say that as uninspiring as the music business can seem, that we are by far our own worst enemies. My wife has a philosophy about this, about protecting one's inspiration, that it's a sacred task, basically. Way more important than who you might dislike in this business or who might have done you wrong, in most cases. Here's a bonus quote. This one's attributed to Hunter S. Thompson, who's a writer and famous curmudgeon, and it is this. The music business is a cruel and shallow money trench, a long plastic hallway where thieves and pimps run free, and good men die like dogs. There's also a negative side. That's good for a laugh, but I would say that the truly negative side is how often we treat ourselves awfully, talk negatively to ourselves, and hold ourselves back. Yes, it is important to have a goal that is deep and compelling and be serious about it. But equally important is to realize that your goal is a lifestyle, an identity, a moral compass. You can cram for a geology test, but you can't cram for mastery, whether it's mastering an instrument, a language, the sciences, developing a fit body, your own emotions. It's going to take a minute. So this week, when you go to the practice room, I want you to remember this thought. There's not much to learn, and it takes forever. Also, it takes more than one life. 5 notes, more than one life. This will allow you to practice slowly, with little to no tension, and be accepting of who you are right now. Your contribution matters right here, right now, not in some future time because you can play really fast 16th notes, which, by the way, may or may not ever arrive. Right now, you may have more to say than the person with a gigantic vocabulary. And you're waiting until you know the big words to start communicating. And by the way, this goes for any creative person who has stumbled onto this video and watched for this long. If you're a painter, if you're a poet, if you're a writer, if you're a composer, the journey that you're on is for a lifetime, and it's about your values. And here's the counterintuitive bit. You'll make it so much farther, so much faster, you won't even believe it. See you soon.